How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is RuffledRowlit, and welcome back to a Pokemon leaks video. We got some massive leaks today, actually, lads. So let's get started with the first one, which is going to be what's in front of us right here, which is apparently a leak being shared by Centro, showing off the champion of the upcoming Pokemon game, but also this was leaked through the upcoming anime, actually. So as you can see, we have three different characters here. We've got a kid, we've got a old dude, and a random another kid, right? Who's got a is that a Chansey? Chansey, yeah. So we know who these people are, according to the leaks. Giant League Gen 10 character concept art leaked from the upcoming anime. But it's not the only thing, though, because he also says the blue-haired guy is the professor. He time travels before the events of Winds and Waves, so in the game, he's older. Interesting. So the blue-haired character is going to be the professor, I guess, right? And then the middle guy is the champion some years before the events of Winds and Waves. So they are, I mean, I'm not sure if they're the same person or if they're unrelated in any way, shape, or form. I don't really know. But then he says the characters will appear in a prequel anime to Winds and Waves' story. It takes place several years before the games and explains some lore behind the legendary Pokemon, which is pretty neat. So yeah, we now have some actual proper stuff to look at. Keep in mind, we haven't had any proper like news, official stuff. So now we got some actual leaks coming out, bringing us some actual stuff. You know what I mean? Like some real shit. And it's literally the champion of the region. Like, we know what he looks like, and we know this is probably real, given the fact that, like, well, first of all, I would trust that Centro wouldn't be tweeting this without, like, some proof and some confirmation. But we can also see the champion has, like, literally winds, right? Winds and waves coming up on his shirt, which is really cool of a motif to use there, because that's the motif of the entire generation, and winds and waves and the whole thing. So it's pretty neat. Somebody asked, well, we actually get to learn about the lore of the legendaries this generation. Already better than Scarlet and Violet. Somebody says, yes, all three legendaries, so three legendaries, okay, it's not going to be only two. Three legendaries are heavily involved in the story of both games, which is, hey, that's good to know. Hopefully that means there's going to be actual differences between the games and not just, you know, hearsay. But this is pretty huge. I'm not gonna lie to you. This is pretty massive. Somebody actually did, like, Luis here did an amazing job. And I think, I hope he did this himself and didn't just use something else to do it. But basically, Mandem basically drew them out, right? To see what they would look like if they were high definition. And there you go. That's what they probably would look like or will look like. We'll have to wait and see. And of course, somebody asked, you know, is it going to be weekly anime or just a YouTube anime? And he says this will be the Twilight Wings, Paldean Winds equivalent. So basically, it's going to be like a short animated series that's going to go up on the internet, probably on YouTube, like they did before with the Twilight Wings, if I'm not mistaken. It's just going to be an animated series that goes up, and it just, you know, it's a temporary thing. It's not like an entire new anime like the other stuff, you know what I mean? It's a little bit different. So there is that, but Centro did tweet some other stuff as well, which we're going to go and see if we go to his profile. Also, by the way, really lovely fan art here, as you can see from Ziu. Already drew the fan art, which is crazy. But here's the deal, though. He says, Pokemon anime leak. So the end of an era. Pokemon Horizons. Wow, this is actually huge. Apparently, Pokemon Horizons, the current anime, right, will be the final weekly Pokemon anime. Starting in Generation 10, the Pokemon anime will be a seasonal one with a shorter fixed number of episodes. This is information coming from Moot Monthly, who has proved as a very reliable source. Now, we know Moot. Moot is, actually, when it comes to anime stuff, he actually does know his shit. But apparently, he came out and said this, and he also shared the Gen 10 concept art as well. So, yeah. This is pretty freaking huge. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's pretty massive, the entire thing, because that means it's the end genuinely of an era. We're never gonna get a Pokemon animated series like with Ash or something anymore. It's all gonna be just these small bite-sized things, which is, I'm gonna be honest, it's kind of depressing, to be real with you. Like, I get why they would quit it, because realistically the Pokemon anime isn't that well performing where like it makes enough money or it's justifiable. Also, something that you guys need to understand, same way that the games function as an advertisement for toys and shit, that's exactly what the anime is. The anime has always just been there as a basically a commercial, right, to make you go and buy Pokemon you know, merchandise and invest yourself into the franchise and stuff. That's what it's always served as. It's a gateway. It's a gateway into Pokemon as a franchise, to get you into the games, to get you into the TCG, to get you into buying the merch. That's what it's always been there for. And Ash did a great job, okay? I grew up watching Ash. I wanted to be like Ash Ketchum. I wanted to catch them all. I think most of us who grew up watching Ash's journey wanted to be just like him. We wanted to travel the world and become the champion. And that's what we did in every single game that we ever played. But the reality of it is they shut Ash down. They got rid of him. They try to make, Horizons. Horizons been doing all right, but I'm pretty sure the numbers that Horizons does are nowhere close to the level that Ash's journeys, had, like the amount of, influence and the viewership and stuff that Ash Ketchum. I mean, he still carries. Like, if you make a video about a ROM hack that has Ash in the title, it does way better than anything with like Liko or Ray or any of these other characters that have been added with Horizons and whatnot. So it's just, the reality is that Ash carried it. Now Ash is not around anymore. They're not planning to bring him back. And I guess that they've done the numbers on it. They crunched the numbers and realized, we're wasting money on the anime. We're wasting money paying people to animate this when we could simply just not do it because we already make enough money. And we can make one singular animated thing once a year. Plus, the weekly anime thing is kind of dying out. It's a dying breed. We don't really see as many animes in general, like even One Piece, okay? Even One Piece, I think, is not doing weekly anymore, if I'm not mistaken. They're actually stopping the weekly, or they took a break, which is like the first time they've kind of done that. Where the goal is to make like, a specific amount of episodes every season instead of making filler. Because back in the day, there was a massive demand from studios and stuff, especially like the higher-ups, to get as many episodes out as possible, to get as much of it out as possible. And so they would make a bunch of filler episodes and just stuff that was pointless. Pokemon never really had this issue, technically speaking, because Pokemon doesn't have to follow a source material. They can just kind of go with whatever they want to be fair, like just make sure they have a specific outline. But the reality of it is they're not going to do that anymore. Now it's going to be just one animated series, probably every year, like one season of something with completely new characters every single time. It's probably going to run for only like 3 to 4 to 5 episodes at most, maybe 6 episodes, I would say. And then that's going to be it. It's not going to go further than that. It's not going to go beyond that. It's going to be a very compact, small package, tiny package, and it's not going to do much more than that. So it's a bit sad. It's unfortunate, but that's just the reality of it. So that's one of the things. We've seen some people, other people just share their thoughts on the actual characters, like TMO2 here saying, what do you mean it's not actually N? So some people thought that the character was going to be time traveling and the whole like thingy or whatever was going to be like Trainer N, which no, that's not the case. Kind of funny just seeing that though. And then of course we do have some other stuff to talk about, like for example, Light shared that apparently we have some Poketopia news. A special Poketopia announcement is officially confirmed for Pokemon Experience and the 2026 World Championship. What could they be revealing? Well, so there's more than competition-related discussion too. Get into the world's mood with a closer look at this year's World Plush and chill listening party at the end of the show, featuring the 2026 World soundtrack. Don't forget to tune in for the special Pokemon Poketopia announcement taking place for Pokemon XP and Worlds. So yeah, there's going to be an announcement for that. Probably means like another announcement of the next DLCs and stuff like that, release dates, all that kind of stuff. It's just going to be an announcement of those sort of things. So pretty expected, pretty straightforward, not that surprising, I guess. But yeah, that pretty much summarizes that. I think we've gone through most of the things. The only other thing I guess we can talk about a bit is actually what is coming next, right? So we know that, we got Winds and Waves coming up. But in terms of upcoming projects, we got Winds and Waves for Gen 10, right? We got Poketopia DLC with the third part expansion pass that's coming out. We've got Project Seed. So Project Seed is the weird one because Project Seed is like the MMO multiplayer Pokemon game with many regions. We don't know if that project is still in the works. There's some people saying yes, some people saying no. We don't actually truly 100% know if that's the case. But we'll have to wait and see if anything comes from that. We, of course, have Project Zeus, which is the Winds and Waves DLC, because, yes, there's going to be that, too. Project Karasu, which is reportedly Pokemon Legends 3, so the next Legends game. Earlier codename was Ringo, and now Karasu. And then P30, which is Project 30, reportedly Generation 11, and its futuristic theme. That we know this is the case now, because none else, and also... shout out to George for sharing this with me because I completely overlooked this. But apparently, Ball Guy replied to someone, and Ball Guy is also another insider leaker. Replied to White Mage here, who asked, "I've never heard of P30. Is that Seed? Is that the same thing?" He says no. P30 is Generation 11. The last time I mentioned it, I hadn't realized it, and I saw some additional context after my tweet. Then somebody says, the person says, "Thank you again. It's interesting though that P30 will, which presumably refers to the anniversary, is the code name for Gen 11 and not Gen 10. I wonder if that's because of the delays." But then he clarifies it, P30, Project 2030, which makes sense, right? Because if you think about it, 2020 actually makes total sense because ideally here, listen, even though we've had this delay in game releases and stuff, even though we've had a delay in like this generation coming out, do keep something very important in mind, okay? That this delay was not something clearly that they wanted to do. Ideally, they would have wanted to have Generation 10 out last year, okay? Not even this year or next year, last year. They would have wanted to have it out. They would have wanted to have Legends EA out the year before that, okay? Like, they wanted to have these things out way earlier. The reason they haven't is because something has happened internally. Something has happened while developing these games that's caused them issues. And these issues have led them to have to delay for the first time practically ever since like maybe 2015 was the only other time they skipped a year, and that wasn't even like on the same level because we still had some, you know, whatever. It wasn't like the same level of what we had right now. Now we've had multiple very intense delays of games, which is much different to what we're used to. So P30, right, 2030, if you do the math, makes sense. 2027, next year, when we get the next generation, Gen 10, Winds and Waves, that's going to be exactly perfectly lined up to be 3 years until the generation after it, which is P30, 2030, right? The turn of the next, decade, right? Which makes sense. It literally makes sense. It's perfect. It's ideal. Like, there's no way to twist it, turn it, or really flip it other than to just say that, yeah, it's kind of to be expected that we're going to get the generational releases back again, which is why P30 being called P30 makes sense. It just fits. But I think that pretty much summarizes that. I don't think there's anything else we've missed. I think we've gone through most of the important stuff. However, there is just a few things left to really, you know, eventually go into and talk about once they do crop up. Of course, gonna have to wait to see if anything comes from these, Champions Leaks and all this stuff and all these new characters that we've seen. We'll have to wait. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me today, guys. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out, and bye-bye.